Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. All right, before Dave Wannstedt, Uncle Dave, my favorite coach, Bears Dolphins, Big Ten Network stops by, I want you to download the Game Time app. 90 seconds, Game Time app. Check it out. It is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball. Padres threw a no-hitter today. Here come the pennant races. Are the Yankees going to turn it around? Are the Dodgers going to get healthy? Can the Orioles keep it up? Prices on the Game Time app go down the closer you get to the opening pitch. Plus baseball, a lot of times with baseball, I'll schedule a football game. But with the Game Time app in baseball, a lot of times it's like you call a buddy in the afternoon. You want to go? Boom. You drive to the stadium. Closer you get to game time, first pitch, prices come down. Put in the code Colin once you download the app, COLIN, $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying baseball tickets, MLB tickets with the Game Time app. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. The code is Colin. All right, he's my buddy. He's connected. He's in Chicago, the former Bears coach who's at practice regularly, does the Big Ten, former Miami Dolphin coach, Dave Wannstedt. I want to start with college football because it's a 12-team playoff this year. I think the three best teams, in my opinion, in the conference are Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. But I have something I want to throw to you because you've coached successfully at the college level. If you're a warm weather Pac-12 school, USC, UCLA, what is the adjustment? Now, Oregon and Washington, coach, they play in crappy weather all the time. I mean, by early November, it's raining, sheet rain in Seattle and Eugene. Would you recruit differently if you were an SC or a UCLA going into this conference, or is that overblown?
No, I think it's happening right now. I talked a lot with Jim Harbaugh, obviously, who played for me when I was at the Bears. And before he left Michigan, I mean, he felt like they were trying to become more of a national recruiting school. Everybody is now, particularly with the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal, Colin, has really taken college players from coast to coast because they're all looking for an opportunity to play. So would I recruit differently? No, I don't think these schools have to, except, now all of a sudden USC, and when I coached at USC, I was the national recruiter. I recruited kids out of Washington, D.C. I recruited kids out of Dallas, Texas at that time to come to USC. So they'll do the same. That won't change. And Ohio State, they go where they want. So does Michigan. So does Penn State. I don't see it being a big difference maker for the major schools. All that they can really sell is because everybody's on TV now anyway. That used to be the sell. When I was at USC, we would say, you come to our place, even though you're in Dallas, Texas, we're going to be on national TV 4 or 5 times a year. Your parents will see you play, your high school coaches and so forth. That's not the case now. Everybody's pretty much on every week.
I said this the other day, is I think Ohio State and Oregon may be, along with Texas, the 3 most talented teams in the country. And Ohio State's in a weird space. So they've been outplayed by Michigan the last 3 years. And really, coach, you always have sayings like you can lose games, you can't lose the locker room. My knock on Ohio State has been they've collected talent. A little bit of my criticism of Steve Sarkisian in his career. He's a great talent collector. Harbaugh's a culture builder. That's the difference. Harbaugh built a culture, and they used that physical culture to beat Ohio State 3 in a row. Is it a fair criticism to say with Ryan Day, a very young coach, he collects talent?
Yep.
But I don't know Dave, I don't know exactly what the hell they are. They can be a finesse team. They just had their starting quarterback transfer. They're pretty. They can play track football. But I've watched them over the last several years get pushed around in some big games. What, in your opinion, what is Ohio State football beyond stacked and talented.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great analogy. I mean, they do a great job recruiting. Ryan Day, I think, is a better coach than people give him credit for. I think, and I remember talking to Jim Harbaugh about this, and I'm referencing Jim because when this NIL came in, Jim, he had a tough time swallowing that because he was under the thing, you're going to come to Michigan and you're going to play football at Michigan and you're going to get an education at Michigan. And yes, we are going to get you ready for the NFL. So that's the culture I think you're referring to. You're right. At Ohio State, God, they get great players, but everything is how quick can I be a number one draft pick? And how quick can I get to the NFL? And when that's your mentality as a football team, there's that inner thing of the connecting with the players. And I'm not saying it's missing at Ohio State. I'm a fan of Ryan Day's, but, there's just not that feel maybe for the school if you're playing there than what there is if you're playing at Michigan, and
you know what it is, Dave? Michigan football feels like Villanova. Ohio State football feels like Kentucky basketball with Calipari. It's become a glamour program.
Yep. Yeah. How fast can you, and I hear the recruiting stories from these guys. How quick can you make me a number one draft pick? And how quick can I get out of here and go to the NFL? The players think about the players that came back last year. Blake Corum could have left. There were four or five big time players at Michigan that contributed to their winning a national championship that could have left, but came back because it was important to them and they wanted to finish playing. That's unique. Nick Saban had that happen to him at Alabama. He had a lot of good players come back because they had that feel for Alabama, and there was a sense of pride there, which it's tough to put into words, but it does definitely mean something. And I think that Ohio State, to some degree, has struggled with that. And obviously not beating Michigan doesn't help.
So it's 2024, and let's talk about something really, really important. If you're ever injured, check out Morgan & Morgan. It's America's largest injury law firm, and they are there for you. Over 100 offices nationwide. Think about that. More than 1,000 lawyers with over $20 billion, that's a B, $20 billion recovered for over 500,000 clients. Things happen in life unexpectedly. Submitting an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan is really, really easy. Like winning in the NFL is hard. We know that quarterbacking in the NFL is hard. Submitting a claim is easy. You're ever injured? Check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/Colin or dial pound law from your cell phone. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting for you to get a full and fair compensation if there's an unexpected accident in your life. And I've had a few. Speaking of Harbaugh, he takes over the Chargers. The NFL, I don't know if you've noticed this, but listen, with their schedule, I think they do, they put Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers all over TV in the first 6 weeks. Short week, night games, which, as you know, is inconvenient to coaching staffs, families, and players. You guys don't want that, but it's the downside to having a star quarterback. You're going to play on Sunday night, Thursdays, Monday night. Yep. It's a pain in the ass. So if you look at the Chargers, because they weren't great last year, they haven't given them a lot of TV games. But Dave, that first 6 weeks, there's a lot of rookie quarterbacks, the weakest teams on their schedule. It's as if they wanted Jim to pop, that they gave him and it's funny because I watched Jim. One of the things he's done in the last two jobs, San Francisco and Michigan, he didn't change the personnel much, but he changed the culture and the winning. Yep. What is his secret sauce? And Parcells had this, to do it instantly. A lot of guys, even Saban took 2 years to get it right, 3 years. Shit, Harbaugh does it in 8 weeks. What's the sauce on that? How do you do that?
He put together a staff, there at at the Chargers, LA Chargers, that similar to what he did when he first went to Michigan. A lot of guys that he didn't have to coach the coaches. I mean, he brought Jesse Minter with him, the defensive coordinator, and I'll be real curious to see how that works out there with the Chargers, because do they have talent with Bosa and Mack and Derwin James? I mean, they got star players on all levels. So they got a talented team, and he kind of had the same thing at Michigan. He did have talent there, and he surrounds himself with coaches where he doesn't have to spend time. And I've been to his practices coaching, as I say, coaching the coaches. You know, those guys come in there all bought in the culture, and we experienced a lot similar. When we went to the Dallas Cowboys with Jimmy, Jimmy hired, I think, 3 guys from the outside. It was our entire defensive staff we went. So we didn't have to waste time with saying, well, what are we going to do when a guy jumps offside? Are we going to run a lap? Are we going to do up downs? Are we going to yell? Are we going to repeat the play? No, we knew what we were going to do. And I really think that you can close the gap so much quicker with a football team when you have a staff and a guys around you that have been through it and won. And that's what Jim put together. I mean, he's got, whether it's offensive coordinator, I mentioned Minter, the defensive coordinator, he's got guys with him. Their linebacker, he drafted his all-American linebacker out of Michigan. He gets Gus Edwards back with them. So he's got a group of guys in there that player-wise and coaching-wise, there's not going to be a whole lot of screaming and trying to explain what he's trying to get done. He's been there and done that.
Yeah, you have a good relationship with Jim Harbaugh. I know he respects that you are very much defense, physicality. When you and Jim Harbaugh have discussions, what are they about? What are they like?
Oh, God. I if you remember, I did his first game. We did it out at Utah the first game he had at Michigan. And I went up there and interview, I think, for Fox, and I was the first guy that he would do a public interview with. And we just talked old stories, and we laughed about some of the crazy stuff when he was at the Bears. And I always told him I thought he could play linebacker because he had that aggressive, 90-mile-an-hour attitude. And, he would want to get into football talk. He talked about him getting his hair cut at the same barbershop that Bo Schembrecher did, him driving to work the same route that Bo used to drive. So he was into Michigan. And obviously, I think he slept in those khakis and the clothes that he wore. I mean, he truly was all in it. But I think when you talk to Jim, he's very sincere and he's very honest. And I think he's what he says is what he means, and he's gonna wear it on his sleeve. He's not gonna be one of those guys where you walk out of a meeting with him and you say, "Boy, I wonder if Jim really means what he said." Oh, when he feels something, he's gonna tell you.
So you coach the Miami Dolphins, and you still do radio hits down there. You know the culture. So there's a difference between a holdout and a quarterback holdout. Jordan Love in Green Bay, very young quarterback with young receivers. Tua is not as young. He's been in the system now. He started. How disruptive is it in your career, a holdout to an elite player, especially an offensive player? Does it screw up the coaching meetings? Does it screw up momentum, the vibe? What do you make of Miami's situation? Because they like the quarterback, but they may be $10 million a year off.
Right. And rightfully so. I mean, I look at that situation and I say, number one, he has had injury problems in addition to the concussion thing. So that's a fact. Yes. You can't hide from that. But in the same token, the guy wins for you, and he's a great team guy, and you can't hide from that either. And speaking of Miami, I remember every year, when we brought Dan Marino joined as a front office person, when Mr. Huizenga, the owner, hired him, Dan came to the combine with us, and we were sitting there, and the conversation was always we had to replace Jay Fiedler. We had to get better in Jay Fiedler, okay? Because at that time, Indy was in our conference, and we played Peyton Manning twice a year, and we played Tom Brady twice a year. And how are we going to get better? And said, And so Dan, we're sitting there, and he says, let's talk about. Can we talk about these quarterbacks? And I handed him a piece of paper. I said, here. And this is kind of what I would tell him now. I hope he does the same damn thing he's working down there now as he did with me. And I handed him this paper. I said, "Here, who do you want?" And he looked at it, and he turned it over and looked at the back. And I said, "Damn, Peyton Manning's not going to be on there. You know, we can get rid of Jay. we can get rid of Jay Fiedler tonight, but show me who we're going to bring in that's going to fit in better and is going to, you know, win more games for us. We're winning 10 games a year. Tell me who's going to do that for us." So I think that's where Miami's at a little bit, is that they're going to have to overpay. I mean, no different than what Dallas is in right now. I mean, these quarterbacks, they got these teams because otherwise you are starting over. And you start over in Miami, goodbye, Derek. You can just start checking the players, you know, Tyreek Hill, start checking the players off that won't be playing at a high level by the time you get another quarterback ready to go. And the coaches will be fired, and who knows about the GM. I mean, it's a total turn upside down of a program if you get rid of a quarterback that's won for you, you know, like a Tua, or in my opinion, I'm jumping ahead a little bit with Dallas, but just like Dak Prescott, I guarantee you they're going through the same issues right there.
Well, Dallas is weird because they've really backed themselves into a corner, Dave, that, you know, Jerry, more than any owner, pays the people he drafts. And that's great, but it's almost a need to validate his draft picks. I mean, Brett Veach is an excellent drafter. He's had no problem paying Joe Tooney, going out and paying other Juju Smith-Schuster. They'll go buy people all the time. And my take on Dallas is they've backed themselves into a corner that basically outside of CeeDee Lamb, Dave, shit, he twists an ankle. That's the weakest receiving room in the league. And I'd argue it's the weakest running back room in the league.
I agree.
So they're really trapped on CeeDee Lamb. And I'm going to throw this at you. Jerry's 81, and he's going to live another 10 years, I'm sure. And I said to myself, I have this feeling that Jerry has said this: I'm not signing up for 4 more years at Dak unless Dak can prove to me he can win without the best line in the league, without Zeke in his prime, and without all these receivers we furnish him with. And it's not as though he's sabotaging him. He's not sabotaging Dak. But what he's saying is, because they only drafted 1 receiver, and it was an area of need. They drafted 1. And my take is Jerry's saying, for this year, I may take us out of Super Bowl contention, but I'm going to make Dak prove to me before I give him $60 million a year that he can lead us and not be led by others. Does that sound like something Jerry would do for a year?
No, it doesn't. I'm going to have to disagree with you here. I think that I think Jerry's looking at this thing and telling himself that if he gets rid of Dak, and he really came out, and Mike McCarthy is a friend, he's a Pittsburgh guy, but it was almost a feeling that everybody that I'm talking to said, okay, Jerry's going to give him enough rope to hang himself, you know. But we're really not going to do much to help your cause. Okay, we were a game away, or 2 or whatever you want to call it, the last couple of years, but we haven't been able to get to the big dance. That's the goal. You're either going to do it or I'm going to get somebody else. So I think that is real obvious to everybody. But here's the problem. So you go ahead, get rid of the coach and don't sign Dak, and he leaves. Who are you going to bring in? You're going to take a chance on another head coach, and now you're starting to develop culture over again. And all of a sudden, you're Lawrence on defense is 10 years in the league. Zach Martin on offense, your other leader, is 2 years in the league. Those guys, their careers are over. So now all of a sudden you got Zeke Elliott. God bless Zeke. I love Zeke, but that's your running game. I don't care. I mean, that's not going to give you a lot of exciting. You're going to have a problem closing out games this year. You get that lead, and you throw the ball to score points, run the ball to win games. Now we have a 5-point lead, and we need 2 first downs, and they can't get it. I see that coming on the horizon, and it's not going to have a damn thing to do with Dak. I think you got to sign Dak, and if you make a change, if the coaching thing doesn't work out, and you got to add some players, at least you got a quarterback, Jerry, that in your mind you believe in. I think he does believe in Dak, and you have an opportunity to move forward and have a chance to make a run at it. You start over with a new quarterback. Was it Cooper Rush or whoever, try to draft a guy. I think you are setting yourself back. And the cap hit. If they don't sign Dak, someone told me they're going to be like $60 to $80 million of dead money next year. So you're not going to have a lot of free agent money a year from now.
And you didn't have any this year.
Didn't have any this year.
Okay. So what are you hearing about Caleb Williams?
Oh, I you know what? I hear a lot. Everything is positive. I would just say this, that the Bears' fortune this year is not going to be determined by Caleb Williams. This is my opinion only. I think it's going to be determined by that offensive line and the defensive line. I think how that is going to be the determining factor if they go playoffs, if they don't go playoffs. I think Caleb Williams is going to play very good if Shane Waldron. Let's talk about what are we going to do with this kid. Shane Waldron, and the only reason I have some hope is that Shane Waldron was on the staff, obviously, with Bill Belichick. At New England, he was on the staff with Pete Carroll, two defensive guys that have an appreciation for running the football, okay? So with that being said, the mistake, and I keep pondering here on my radio shows and TV shows, we've got to keep this in perspective. We've got to be smart with what we do with Caleb Williams. We're going to have a defense that's going to give him the football. We got a chance. We're got a top 10 defense. We are going to give him the football in ample field position and opportunities. He doesn't have to be. Everybody's talking about, and we have great receivers. When you go DJ Moore and you go Keenan Allen and you throw in Odunze, Komet at tight end, we've got outstanding receivers. As good as anybody, arguably. But that, to me, that's not going to be the factor with Caleb Williams. It's going to be, what are we going to ask this kid to do? We've got to be balanced. No one in Chicago wants to hear me say the word balanced. They panic. They think it's my offense of trying to run it 50 times a game, okay? No, I'm talking about being balanced. They got, DeAndre Swift in the backfield. They got some real skill, but Caleb Williams shouldn't have to be the guy as a rookie to determine how far this team goes. Let's put in a nice offensive system because he does. And I'll tell you this kid makes good, quick decisions. He doesn't throw interceptions. He never did in college. All the college stats. At USC, 70-some touchdowns and 10 interceptions, 7-1 touchdown to interception. Outstanding. Here's what he's going to have to do. At USC, he saw a three-man rush between 20 and 30% of the time. By that, rush 3, drop 8. And what did he run for? When we used to run that coverage, okay, we were always scared to death that the quarterback, everybody's dropping out of there. He's just going to take that ball and run up in there and run for the first time. But Caleb Williams is not that guy. Does he have athletic ability? Yes. What did he average rushing in college? About 1.5 yards a carry. You think back to his USC days, how many great long scrambles did he have? That was not his game. Here's what he's going to have to do in the NFL. He's going to have to buy into throwing to the tight ends and the running backs. Get the ball out quick because he's going to see a pass rush like he's never seen in his life. Never seen in his life. And the fault that he did at USC, 23% of the time, they're dropping back 8, and he's moving around. He's avoiding the rush, but he's trying to get the big play. He would not throw the ball underneath. As a result, sacks, fumbles. That's what happens. So to me, what does Caleb Williams have to do to be successful? He's just got to make sure that he take the money, like you used to say. Take what the defense gives you. If they want to drop in coverage, they're tempting you to throw it deep. You just throw it underneath, take the money. We got players. Keenan Allen's a great little option guy underneath. DeAndre Swift. Get these guys the ball and let them go. That's what he has to learn. And Shane Waldron, in my opinion, I can't wait to see when they start unfolding this offense, because I'll tell you what, I was with two quarterbacks. I was at Chicago when Brett Favre started, okay? And his offensive coordinator and head coach was Mike Holmgren. Mike was an offensive guy, we all know. Offensive coordinator for the 49ers, Bill Walsh, on and on, Joe Montana. I was also at the Miami Dolphins when Tom Brady started as a rookie. So I've got two visions of competing against guys twice a year. One, great defensive coach in Belichick, rookie quarterback. One, great offensive coach, Mike Holmgren, Brett Favre. Guess what? Both of them, it was run the ball, ton of screens. Mike Holmgren, Belichick, they were running tight end screens, fullback screens, tailback screens. And why were they doing that? They were gaining confidence with this young kid and just bringing him along. And they were playing great defense, both teams, okay? And when they had opportunities with their playmakers to make plays, they did. But I think Brady and Favre gained confidence as they went through the process. And I just hope that we do this with Caleb. I hope we don't get into, we got great receivers and talent. Let's let them drop back and let it fly. That would be a mistake for this football team. And it would be a mistake, I think, for this kid. Let's just take it one step at a time. We got enough talent in other areas to help this kid out.
I'm going to throw this story at you. I thought it was really interesting. And inside a locker room, and there is something about the quarterback position. Howie Long says you can't have two-star quarterbacks in the same room. Each one sucks the oxygen out of the room. So Russell Wilson has never been popular inside of his locker rooms. I mean, we know that now, coaches, players. Justin Fields, to the very end in Chicago, was loved by his teammates. So Mike Tomlin has a dance to play. That Fields is bigger, more athletic, and a better arm, but is viewed as the backup. Russell will get the starting nod, but he's a bit inauthentic and not as liked in a locker room. And at this point in his career, not as dynamic athletically as Fields is. And so it's going to be a weird balance where you don't want the locker room picking sides, but everybody loves Justin. At practice, I bet he looks great. I mean, he's 6'4", moves well, big arm. And I wonder what Tomlin, Pittsburgh well. It is a weird dynamic. If the players actually, he's young. He's not rich. The young guys will go out with Justin. They're not going to go out with Ciara and Russ. That's not what's going to happen. And I think to myself, if Russ loses back-to-back games, that locker room, they like Justin Fields. That young locker room, young guys hang out with young guys. What's I think it has a powder keg feel.
Yeah, two thoughts on that. And I know Justin very well. And I was a supporter of Justin's here. But at the end of the day, your quarterbacks are determined by your team's down by 10, right? With 5 minutes to go. Do you have a guy at quarterback that can take you down the field and score twice and win the game? Justin Fields, I hate to even say this, but if you look at his fourth quarter stats since he's been in the bad, worst in the league. Interceptions, sacks, turnovers. Terrible. Justin Fields is going to do things, guys, that get you out of your chair. Okay, he's going to get you out of your chair in your living room. That's very difficult for you to do, Colin. I know when you get home, getting out of your chair. Okay, but you're going to have to put that vodka down, and you're going to have to get out of your chair. Okay, but at the end of the day, Russell Wilson's the guy. I'm a fan. This guy threw 3 touchdowns to 1 interception last year. I was looking at it this morning. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions under adverse conditions with Sean Payton. Let's face it. The guy was miserable. And he's going to walk into that. You walk into the entrance and I've been there, was sharing offices and fields with these guys for 6 years when I was at Pitt. You walk into that Steeler office, and you see nothing but Super Bowl trophies. And Russell probably has a terrible towel under his front seat of his car. I mean, he's got the terrible towel going. That will not be a problem. He will buy in so quick, and Mike Tomlin will do such a great job of bringing him along. And I'll tell you, he's got an offensive coordinator now, Arthur Smith. This guy's good. I mean, he's really good, and he's going to do things, I think, that re-energize Russell. I think they'll have some plays for Justin Fields. I think he'll come in, he'll make a run, or he'll make a scramble or do something, and it'll get all the terrible towels going in the stadium. But at the end of the day, to win a Super Bowl and win your division, it's Russell Wilson, in my opinion. And I'm a Justin Fields fan, but I've faced Russell Wilson going back to NC State days when he was down here and I was at Pitt and we played him. So I know him well, and I'm just a fan. I really am.
Finally, this next 8 weeks is the scariest 8 weeks for football fans because there's almost no great news, but potentially disastrous news with injuries. What's the line you pushed to practice hard, build that moxie and mettle, but to not get injuries? Is it a fine line? Is it difficult?
Well, you don't ever talk about injuries, and you know what? When they happen, obviously it's the old company line, next guy up. But I'll tell you what, the mistake you make is by saying we're going to become a physical team later on. This is the time to do it. You got to do it. It's a game of blocking and tackling. You don't get many opportunities now. When the Bears are putting on the pads tomorrow, I'll be there for the first time. And, I'll be highly disappointed if I don't see these guys cranking it up and getting after it. I always told the players this, and think about this for a second. And I remember having this conversation with Jason Taylor. Coach, what's your thought for me this preseason and training camp? And Jason at that time was a 2 or 3 or whatever, time Pro Bowler, and one of our captains and leaders or whatever. And I said, you know what, Jason, here's the deal. When I see you performing on the field with pads on, none of this pushing stuff, with pads on, at the level that I know that you need to perform for us to get to the Super Bowl, guess what, Jason? You'll know it, and your teammates will know it. When we see you at that level on the field, I've got enough. Let's get ready for the opener, and let's go. But, that was kind of the message that I would tell the players, if that makes sense. Now, I don't care what you did last year. If you don't come back and have that quickness and have that explosion and have that power, and you're not tackling and doing all the things that you're going to have to do with the opening week, then you're not ready. You're not ready, Colin. And that was what I told him. And I remember Jason and I having the conversation. I says, I'll know, but it just won't be me, Jason. I'll know when you're ready. You'll know, and guess what? Your teammates will know too. And they'll all say, wow, Jason's back. And then, okay, let's get ready for the opener. We got you enough full speed work, and that's what we're talking about here. Full speed. The trap is to say, oh, he'll be okay. I know him. Jason will get it. That's the trap you fall into. At least I've always believed that, and just every place I've coached. That's the way we've never talked in terms like that, like I did to Jason, but that was the goal and what we were trying to accomplish by doing what we did.
The advantage to young teams in the NFL, they're cheaper and they often recover more quickly from injuries. The advantage to old teams, you get smarter teams, more experience, generally better situationally, been there before. The Niners are the classic, really talented, old, expensive team, but they've got multiple guys that want to hold out. That's all I've heard in the offseason. Go to your career. Older teams, guys start saying, okay, this is my last contract. They don't want to practice as much. They don't want to get hit as much. They want to get paid more. I think San Francisco feels like they're on that edge, Dave, where it's a really rich, and by the way, even the guys that aren't old, Debo, Hufanga, have had injuries. Guys start looking at their bank accounts when they've had those injuries, knowing if they have another serious one, the money dries up. Did you ever have a situation with a great team where it started aging and you felt that football was often the second thing they thought about?
No, I can't say I have. I mean, I think that would be horrible for a coach. I mean, I really do. That would be as bad as having guaranteed contracts for every player on your team, and trying to coach them. Fortunately, no, I've never been in that situation. When we won our first Super Bowl with Dallas, we were like the youngest team in the NFL. So that was around for a few years. When I went to Miami, we kind of revamped everything there to some degree. But no, I've never been in that situation. Things have changed now, and that's culture. I mean, that's where your head coach earns his money. I mean, that's called friendly fire in football, in my opinion. And you can't avoid it. I mean, if that's going on in San Francisco, Shanahan, he's got to get in there and address it, and he's got to communicate with these darn players, and they've got to understand that the guy next to him is relying on them. And if you want to win a Super Bowl, everybody's got to kind of carry their end of the load. Everybody's got to be accountable for their thing. If you don't, you'll never win it. You'll never win it. You always come up short.
So Belichick, post Tom Brady, didn't just struggle, he crashed. The offense was putrid. The coaching staff was retreads. He controlled the roster. It's fairly anemic offensively. So he didn't get any offers. And I'm curious, as a coach that's in his 70s, if Belichick, and reportedly he wants to come back, what kind of job and how long do you think he would stay? Where do you think he is at now as the second winningest coach, the Don Shula?
You know what? You hate talking jobs because then you're making it sound like you're talking about somebody losing their job. And that's not what I'm saying here. But I think knowing Bill somewhat, and I know he talks with Jimmy some, and how many years is Bill going to coach? 2, 3, 4, 5 at the most, maybe. Let's just put that in terms.
Maybe.
Yeah. The thing that was missing at New England was Tom Brady. I mean, that's the reality. He went through quarterbacks up there, offensive coordinators, the defensive coordinators. I mean, it was all over the place. So if Bill does come back, it's going to be a place where they have a quarterback. And, I mean, the rumors out there with people talking about he's going to go to the Giants and he's going to go here. He's not going to go Dallas. If Dak doesn't get signed back, Bill's not going anywhere near that place and start over. You know what I mean? So who are those teams? The Philadelphia, maybe the Jets. If depending what Aaron Rodgers does. I mean, who are the teams that have really good quarterbacks and good players where he can go in and just because of his background and his history, the guys are going to respond, and because guys want to get a ring, and they're going to buy in quick. But he's going to have a quarterback to give him a chance to do that. He's not going anywhere else. People talk, where he's got to start over or the quarterback is average. That ain't happening.
Well, ask yourself this: Harbaugh leaves Michigan. Which job does he choose?
Oh,
Justin Herbert.
Yes, they were were lined up there. Exactly right. That was smart. Jim knows the drill. Knows the drill. Absolutely.
All right, Coach. Thanks.
Okay.